And today marks the end of perhaps a pivotal week for the president and for the 2012 election. The president has just wrapped up remarks in Colorado Springs, where the Waldo Canyon fire is now the most destructive fire in the state's history. After releasing federal emergency funds this morning, the president toured devastating wildfire damage that's left more than 30,000 displaced. At a local fire station, he thanked firefighters and residents alike for their courage and praised America's unifying spirit in these times of crisis.
The devastation is enormous, and our thoughts and prayers go out to all the families who've been affected. One of the things that I've tried to emphasize is that whether it's fires in Colorado or flooding in the northern parts of Florida, when natural disasters like this hit, America comes together, and we all recognize that there but for the grace of God go I. We've got to make sure that we have each other's backs.
Indeed. The president has been busy in the hours since the Supreme Court upheld his health care reform law, visiting Walter Reed Hospital Thursday and this morning welcoming to the White House Stephanie Decker and her family. Mrs. Decker lost both her legs while shielding her two children from a tornado in southern Indiana in March. And while the president's been showing compassion and command in a crisis, Mitt Romney's been busy as well, shuffling off to Buffalo today for a fundraising cash grab. That after hitting up top dollar donors with Donald Trump in tow at the Pierre Hotel's penthouse just last night. Indeed, Romney's campaign has been eagerly tweeting every hour about how much money they've raised off of their full repeal outreach effort on the healthcare law. $4.6 million so far. Funny that such a comprehensive and active digital team can't manage to release, say, Romney's own plan for healthcare reform. And while the repeal effort does double Romney's May average of $2.5 million raised on a daily basis, yes, that's every day, the Obama campaign claims they have in fact outraised the governor with support for the healthcare decision in the same period. Let's get right to our panel now. With us from Washington, MSNBC political analyst Michael Eric Dyson, who's a professor at Georgetown University. Jared Bernstein is senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities and a former chief economist and policy advisor to Vice President Joe Biden. And Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank. Sorry, Dana, that you have the shortest affirmation. Gentlemen, a bit of news before we dive in. The Department of Justice has just informed Congress that they will not prosecute Attorney General Eric Holder for contempt. So there you have it. Professor Dyson, your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, it's the only reasonable thing to do. This whole shenanigan was a display of political bitterness on the part of Republicans. Never in the history of this country has the Attorney General been held to such an ignominious standard. And I think this just shows how bitterly divided we are as Americans. Sure, you can press your case, you can make your argument, but to go to this extremes, to engage in what they knew was an empty political gesture, shows the degrees to which we've descended in American political discourse.
Professor Dyson, the president has emerged from this busy week with his central legislative achievement intact and a polling boost in swing states. Is it your view that this may well be seen as the pivotal moment in his campaign to win re-election?
Absolutely, because what he has done is prove that one of the most articulate spokesmen for the far right on the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Roberts, has agreed that this was a matter of taxation, that it was constitutionally legitimate, and that despite their differences ideologically, and Mr. Roberts, as you will recall, was quite visible in his resistance to Mr. Obama's criticism of the Citizens United, despite their tremendous differences, Mr. Roberts proved that he was capable of transcending those bitter ideological divides to go to the Constitution itself and to go to what he felt was a legal basis for this decision. I think this will make a tremendous difference in winning Barack Obama re-election and gives him a kind of confidence and a wind beneath his wings.
Jared, Mitt Romney's only response to the healthcare ruling was to become a font of misinformation, saying it would add literally trillions to the deficit, among other blatant untruths. But have you ever seen a presidential candidate treat his very own legacy with such contempt? He implemented the mandate in Massachusetts, but now he expects us all to believe that he hates the very idea of it.
I think that's quite a mind blower. And you know, getting back to the discussion you were just having, why I think this may be pivotal is because the fact remains that we have 50 million uninsured people in this country, and we spend per capita twice that on our health care compared to any other of the advanced economies, and that's unsustainable. And one man, President Obama, has a plan that was supported by a democratically elected government and by the highest court in the land, and he's trying to move that forward. And another man, Governor Romney, his platform is replace and repeal. And I think at some point it just becomes incredibly conspicuous that one person's trying to solve problems and another person isn't.
Dana, in your latest column, you call this an extraordinarily brave decision by the Chief Justice, and yet he joked today that he'll be spending his holiday, and I'm quoting him, on an impregnable fortress on Malta. So does it really make sense for Republicans to vilify their prized Chief Justice, given how sensitive he himself has been about the issue?
I don't think they can vilify John Roberts because they have been praising him in such elaborate ways going back to 2005 when he was confirmed as Chief Justice. You can't walk those sort of things back. And guess what?
Dana, why can't they walk it back? Mitt Romney's walked back the mandate. I mean, what are you talking about?
Mitt Romney is uniquely capable of revising history on these things. Look, they're free to say whatever they want about John Roberts, and some of them already are. The fact of the matter is, he proved that he was exactly what he said he would be during those confirmation hearings, that he said he was going to be the umpire calling balls and strikes. Now, people on the left didn't really believe it. They thought he'd be another Scalia, and people on the right hoped that he would be another Scalia. Right. And in many cases he has been, but in the most important case of the Roberts Court, he has taken the integrity of the court and his own integrity more importantly than he does the politics, and at least somebody in this town is doing that.
Exactly. It's a relief. Professor Dyson, much like mandates, going back to what's happening in Colorado, Mitt Romney was a believer in man-made global warming before saying he didn't know what caused it and offering no plan to control it. As we suffer under a vast dome of record heat here in the East, as you know yourself in Washington, as we watch Colorado burn under drought conditions, how smart of a flip-flop do you think Romney's performed on this one?
I mean, look, the science of it is real. We used to, joke with George W. Bush about his inability to acknowledge that the science of it was the thing that mattered, that the facts mattered, not one's opinions. Trying to reduce this into superstition was ridiculous. And I think Mitt Romney is just showing his flanks and they're exposed and vulnerable here. It's about the science, baby. It's about the science. And the science wins out. And it shows us that we are suffering under enormous atmospheric pressures that have been introduced as a result of man-made foibles and the erosion of the ozone and what's happening there. I mean, that's not about politics of left or right. That's not about Democrat or Republican. That's about, neutral science. And the degree to which they're incapable of acknowledging that science indicates the degree to which they're willing to be irrational in the defense of their positions, which, by the way, Martin, is what Mitt Romney has proved to be across the board.
Indeed. Jared, I want to go for a moment to your expertise on the economy. The German Chancellor has said that she is now satisfied with the deal to help finance debt-laden Eurozone countries. And today the markets are up astronomically in some senses. Is this a sign, do you think, of some real stability in Europe? And if it is, does this put another issue that might have been a problem for the president on the back burner, as it were?
It's hopeful in the following sense. Now, when you're talking about European economic policy, you have to be careful because often it's a step forward and two steps back. But what they've agreed to now is direct recapitalization of some of their troubled banks. The way it was going to happen before this agreement, they were going to lend monies to countries that were already seriously indebted. That would have increased the level of those countries' debt. Then the countries themselves would have lent to the banks. Now, this is better because it's a direct recapitalization, direct lending to the banks themselves, thus not exacerbating the sovereign debt problems of these countries. And apparently, Germany, who's been a holdout, has agreed. Now, I've been reading in the paper, well, we have to appoint appoint a regional commissioner, and there's some disagreement. So then you have to keep an eye on this, but it does seem like a positive development.
Finally, therefore, to Dana. Dana, your column often takes a look at the whole set of circumstances, and I think that's why many of the readers, including myself, love what you write. How would you sum up this week for the president?
You know, I think that's an important question, Martin, because we're all looking at that. What does this mean for his re-election? You know what? There's something more important than re-election, and that is, what does it mean for his presidency?
Right.
Had it gone the other way on health care, you'd say the signature achievement of the last 4 years is gone. Had it gone the other way on immigration in the courts, you could really see that this guy is on the run and in retreat. It's a much stronger presidency right now. It has actually achieved something in these last 4 years. I can't help but believe that helps the president in November, regardless of which side it gives the energy to. But more importantly, there is something more important than politics, and that is actually governing.
Indeed. Try telling John Boehner that. Dana Milbank, Jared Bernstein, and Professor Michael Eric Dyson, thank you all.